Welcome to Reinventing Broadcast, where AI meets content. Hosted by Ben Anker. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show, the Broadcast Media Inside Track. This week, we've got Padraig O'Donovan on the show. Welcome to the show. Padraig, would you like to tell the listeners a bit about yourself and how you got into the industry?
Thanks, Ben. Great to be here. So I started in broadcast in 2009 in a broadcaster in their digital division, where I led digital technology and operations. And I entered the business originally as a project lead and ended up running and owning the digital technology and solutions. And that was the early days of broadcast when not all the vision from the broadcaster was put on air. And in most cases, it was a manual process.
Yeah.
The broadcaster at the time didn't see as much of the benefits in digital as they do now. And it wasn't considered a future aspect of the business. Lots of change, obviously, since then. So I worked in a broadcaster for 5 years, led the first digital transformation for a tier one broadcaster in Australia with Channel 10. And that was a major broadcast project. That was a $7.5 million project back in 2012 that essentially replaced every part of that broadcast solution.
Oh, wow.
And stitched together 14 separate suppliers into a very complex media operation across broadcast, commercialization, analytics, delivery to consumer in video management platforms and content management platforms. So it was a very complex solution. From there, I worked there for almost 5 years. And then from there, I went on to run the project that delivered digital TV measurement in Australia. That was also a very exciting project. So that was a broadcast-led project. So that was working with all the free-to-air broadcasters and Foxtel in Australia to build a single currency for the collection of TV delivered digitally. Wow. Interestingly, when I started in that role, VOD was still the main consumption format, and when I left, live had greatly surpassed it. What actually happened was one of the leaders in the broadcast industry, a guy called Clive Dickens, very smart man, convinced the broadcaster Channel 7 to deliver the Olympics live. So he live streamed the Olympics. And to do that, he essentially turned on all of Channel 7's, all of their individual channels live for the duration of the Olympics. And at the end of the Olympics, they kept it on. And that was the first major broadcaster in Australia to live stream all their content. And since then, they've all live streamed. So Channel 7 did it, and then Channel 9 and Channel 10 followed on very, very quickly. And they were real commercial opportunities because they had all of this rich content that was now being commercialized in additional ways because they were live streaming it.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges is that, and we all know this, is the decision about when to watch content. People like to choose to watch it when they choose, right? And when it's not based on a broadcaster schedule. So if they can watch it live, they will, but they'll also watch it as catch up. When I was in OzTam, which was the TV measurement service, there was a piece of research done out of America, and it was trying to gauge how the digital platforms were helping broadcasters to continue to drive revenue. And what they found was that because the digital platforms had given the consumer additional ways to catch up on the content, it was actually driving engagement across the full episode. So it had been known that if you have an episodic piece of content and you miss an episode and potentially can't catch up, there is that potential that you don't go back for the next one. But because there was now a capability and a very smart solution around watching that content on mobile, web, and sometimes connected TV, it meant that the audience could always stay engaged with the content.
Yeah.
I did that for another 5 years. That service went into production and was signed off as the currency. And then I started Layercake. And Layercake is an organization that predominantly has three main pillars. It has consultancy, engineering. We are software engineers. And it also has products in the sports and media space. Because of our history in broadcast, we've been, predominantly in that industry since we've started. So at Layercake, we have a number of key products that are specifically designed for that industry. Our main product being a product called Streamcake. So we have Layercake, we have another product called Media Cake, and we have Streamcake. So we do like a lot of cake. And in Streamcake, which is our main product, we've delivered to the marketplace a automation and orchestration platform for third party software and hardware vendors to be built into advanced media workflows that can be monitored and run with a single control plane. So back to that original example in Channel 10, when we built that major digital transformation and we had 14 separate separate partners stitched together into an ecosystem. We now do that in a mechanism that's far more innovative and faster to market.
Wow. And so, I mean, I'm always curious about like digital innovation, Padraig. So, what have you done there specifically? That's quite exciting.
Yeah, that's a great question. We're always innovating. We're the platform we built in Streamcake was actually built on a foundation of innovation. It's designed to integrate third-party services in a model that allows you to, for example, just say you have a media workflow, and in that media workflow you have a commercial component, and there's a piece of software that does that commercial capability. Our model allows you to switch out that element without impacting the rest of your workflow.
Yeah.
So it was built around a framework of innovation. So it's in our world, it's always innovating. I mean, we started in a world where it was first party served ads. That meant that the broadcaster was given the ad from the advertiser and served it from their own ad platform. Now it's moved off to third party. Now it's moved off to programmatic. So the evolution of the industry has grown quite dramatically. We're seeing a lot of innovation around the use of cloud, specifically in traditional broadcast. When I started in broadcast, it was all hardware based, which meant they had studios and they had cables that ran from cameras into hardware-based solutions that delivered very complex and advanced broadcast solutions. But now we are able to work with our partners to deliver advanced broadcast solutions in the cloud at a fraction of the cost. And in our model, it's based on a concept of deploy and destroy, which means you can turn it on for an event. And at the end of the event, you can turn it off again. So you're only paying for the solution when you need it. We also consider ourselves agnostic, so we don't tie ourselves to any specific infrastructure provider or any technologies, which means that the solutions we build, we will build them to work on the leading infrastructure providers in the world. So Amazon, Oracle, Google, Linode, or any infrastructure partner of choice. And the driver for that is that you can then have a solution that best meets your needs. The reality of broadcast and content is that not all content is equal. And I do believe content is king. But what I mean by not all content is equal is in a broadcaster, what they do is they create content and put it in a TV schedule. And by putting it in a TV schedule, they're already making an assumption on the value of that content. It's obviously more than assumption. It's probably mean to call it an assumption. They're making a very strong decision on where that content should sit in their schedule based on the value of it. So we allow organizations to build media workflows that are aligned with the value of their content. What that means is your top tier content can run on infrastructure that's top tier. And you can then run infrastructure in potentially, up to 3 to 5 tiers, which means that every tier is a different level of quality and service that allows you to align the infrastructure with the value of your content, which then truly allows you to maximize the revenue from that content by ensuring that you're aligning the costs with the revenue.
Yeah. And it's curious, like you say about, everything started off as hardware when you started, and a lot of the stuff you're doing now is about the cloud, and you're in Australia. So I'd like to get this like Australian view, because years ago there was like the rise of the streamers, and in the UK especially, we can see like YouTube taking like number 2 slot for the most watched TV platform. Or what's the current state of that in Australia? Are you seeing the same trends?
Yes, I would say to you that the broadcast industry has changed quite a lot. The audience has changed a lot. When I worked in a broadcaster, there was less competition for the audience. But now anyone can go and create content and put it on a YouTube channel. They can put it on Instagram. So everyone is a creator. Anyone who wants to create content can be a creator, which means that there's content coming from everywhere. So it means that the eyeballs, there's a lot more competition for eyeballs. So back in the day, in when I started in broadcast, there was a lot of competition across the broadcasters, and then obviously, as you said, the digital platforms came in, Facebook, YouTube, but any platform that could take a user away, take time from a user, was competition. So the broadcasters have had to evolve and ensure that their content is available to users in a format that's easy to use, so that they can, if they're NRL and AFL are 2 main sports in Australia, there's NRL games on right now. So if I don't want to watch the whole game, but I want to, look at it for 5 minutes to see what's going on, users can do that, so people can consume the content in far more, in a far more usable manner, which means that the consumers are still engaging with the content. The reality of the broadcast industry is that the audience, the traditional TV audience, is changing. And they went from very serious revenue businesses to businesses now that the audience is declining. So they've had to understand how they can commercialize their content in many different ways. It's not just pushed to the TV as a single piece of content. Every piece of content that's created now, there's consideration of how it can be monetized in many different formats. Traditional linear TV, but then VOD, live, pushed into subscription platforms.
I'm also thinking like vertical as well, right? So the Gen Zs are constantly on the phones, and is there like the actual vertical aspect and the length of it, right? The younger audience seems to like shorter stuff and on the vertical plane.
Yeah, well, if you look at people nowadays on a phone, they're always looking. Traditionally, when you watch content on a phone, you went landscape, but nowadays people use their phone in portrait. And I think what there's many aspects to that, but in that model, you can view content, you can view video, but often you can interact with other content. So the whole frame is not taken with the content. So there's an opportunity to view and to choose. I mean, if you go to YouTube on a mobile in portrait, you can watch your video and then navigate and decide. So you're always, you're always keeping engaged. I would say that there's been a lot of advancement now and we see this a lot with some of the partners we have, in particular a company called Magnify, who allows broadcasters to stream the content to them directly and then use AI and smart technology to pull out exciting snips from the content. It's not exciting short form and push it out to social platforms. Now, there's two drivers for that. They're pushing it to social platforms to ideally bring you back into the live vision, but they're also commercializing that content when they push it to social. So they're not often just sending it to social. They're often sending it to social with brand integration. So it creates an additional revenue opportunity. But yeah, the format in which content is viewed has changed quite dramatically.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about, are you seeing anything like exciting coming up in the industry? Have you got any sort of exciting plans, or you just mentioned AI there? Is there any, specific use cases you've seen around the industry that's like caught your eye?
Yeah, so there's a lot of excitement in the industry at the moment. It's a big time of the year for us. So we're preparing to go to NAB, which is in Vegas in April. That's a big event for us. We go to NAB in April, and we go to IBC in September. NAB's in the US, IBC is the European equivalent. And that's where, I mean, they're the key events, the key major traditional events in the broadcast event schedule. And there we're going to be showing all the new advancements that we're building into our solution. We're doing a lot of exciting things around CDN switching. The ability to switch CDNs using triggers so that users are never dropping out. I mean, I don't know if you saw last year where Cloudflare had major outages, and that had major impacts to customers. Cloudflare are a partner of ours, and they're fantastic technology, but there can be issues. And we're building solutions that allow digital systems to have the type of redundancy that traditional broadcasters had in those hardware-based solutions. What we're also seeing, and we're doing a lot more of, is broadcast cloud production. Working with partners like Grass Valley, who is the leader in cloud production in the broadcast world. They've got a product called GVAMP, which is making serious headway into the industry. And now broadcasters are, so in our model, we can, with our solution, we can turn on an end-to-end broadcast solution, production solution for, a traditional broadcast in about half an hour. Now that would have been unheard of. That's the kind of solution that would have taken 6 to 12 months to build in a studio once upon a time. So there's an awful lot of innovation around that. One of the key things we're seeing is that, by having the ability to choose infrastructure, we're seeing opportunities to save up to 90% on the infrastructure solutions. We're working with smart technology companies like Blue who do sub-millisecond encoding. We're working with a lot of really innovative and smart organizations that are building, the future of broadcast. I suppose the most exciting thing about what we do is we get to see and use all these really exciting smart tools because we build them into our solution to be added into our capabilities so that we can start building and continue to build smart workflows.
Oh.
When it comes to AI, as you know, AI is everywhere now, right? So everyone's talking about it. But in the broadcast industry, there's lots of really smart use cases. We just talked about how live vision is now being processed in real time using AI to detect key events that get sent out to social platforms, for example, that get sent out to users through messaging and so connecting to the user in real time with updates of content from potentially live games. We're also seeing in our business, we have a partnership with a company called iSports, and they're looking to use, they have a analytic tool that allows people to manually analyze sports vision. And they're using AI to process that vision in real time. So there's a huge amount of advancement. We're also working with a partner called Sports Visio, who have a very advanced solution that allows them to process volleyball and basketball games, which means that they can now take grassroots content is now being pushed through these smart AI models to bring out very exciting insights from the game. And that would never have happened before. So there's a huge amount of advancement in the use of AI in content operations.
Wow. Yeah. I'm always like keen to hear on stuff like that. But yeah, for now, I think it's going to be a wrap, Padraig. Thank you for coming on the show, and all the best with Layercake at NAB and IBC.
Good to meet you. Have a great day and God bless.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to Reinventing Broadcast. Subscribe for more on AI content and the future of media. And visit Ancast.tv for more info on Ben himself, the resources, other content, and news.